Ahead of this year's Clinical Trial Supply Forum, we're going to discuss the key challenges and industry shifts confronting the supply chain and vendor relation approaches to solving these challenges, the biggest opportunities and how to drive the future of biopharm supplies. And thank you so much for joining me, Luiz. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you for inviting for this one. I'm doing very well, thank you. Although living on this COVID days, right? We are just trying to fix things up, and things are really well over here.
And actually, that's the perfect lead-in, because based on COVID and the pandemic, there are a huge number of challenges that are confronting us in the biopharm supply chain. So I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this. So for you, what are the key challenges confronting supply chain and suppliers, and why?
Yeah, this being hectic days, been tough days for the supply chain guys. I would say that have gone through many challenges on research, on development, on production, but now we need supply chain to lead with all these topics and guarantee that we can provide goods and vaccines and products to the consumers, right? So today it's very complex to manage the whole situation, since we've been facing issues with China, with international logistics. No one could ever foresee the problem that we had 1 year ago with the Suez Canal. So you can imagine that it was a crisis within a crisis, and people from supply chain, probably most of them are getting like me with white hair, because it's very complex. On development and clinical trials and relationship with suppliers is the same. Most of our suppliers, in a global perspective, they are facing issues in providing finished goods, in providing on-time finished material for us, and it's been complex to manage the situation, very complex. On the other hand, our customers keep demanding, for example, I would say vitamins and other ones. People are demanding this strongly. I have 4 times the usual demand I used to have for certain products, and the lack of proper supply. Okay, so this is tough.
And that's good insight, and I appreciate that. And ultimately, what we found is the way we actually overcome these challenges varies from company to company. But we know, and especially based on your example of the Suez Canal, we know that it's essential for our continued success to figure out how we can overcome these challenges and be adaptable and flexible on a consistent basis. So based on the Suez Canal as well as the other supply chain issues, what top tips and solutions have you found help you to overcome these challenges so far?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. It's very interesting that the point here is to rely on your supplier. This is I would say, the main challenge that we have today. Some companies, they think that they can do the best, and they said, okay, we are the ones that can do can have the best solution. Not all the times. Sometimes your supplier has the best alternative for you. But there's one interesting point, or at least a few interesting points, that we must discuss and approach. One of them, you do need suppliers that share the same focus that you have. Most of people talk about customer focus on the customer, and keep focusing on your customer, or one of our suppliers that keep focusing on buyer. This is not true. At least from my concept, this is not all true. What I must have, I need a supplier that share my vision. He must have the customer's focus. We must be focusing on the same target. So I don't need a supplier that focus on me, on buyer, that wants to pay me a coffee and have some chat. And no, They need to solve the same problems that I do, right? So I think that this is the key message. When I have a supplier that works with me in building the structure that I need and to help me go all the way to my consumers, this is what I need. And you know, only when you have a supplier that shares the same vision that you have, you can rely on innovation. Those suppliers are innovative. Those ones will bring solutions that you need. If you have one supplier that only has, that keeps focusing on you, he's focusing on you, not in your demands, your needs, and they will not look for new alternatives. So this is a very common mistake that companies do. They keep relying on suppliers that will be doing always the same thing. They will not look for alternative solutions. Okay, and there are a few ways to build up this customers focus with our suppliers.
I think it's sage advice to have really the same vision, to have suppliers that are innovative and can actually provide solutions to folks, and that's fantastic. So yeah, I think from that perspective, why don't you go on, talk to us about what are the biggest opportunities that have opened up for the supply chain, and how did you take advantage of them, especially with these suppliers?
I really hope to add value to the relationships that we have with that companies have with their suppliers. But I would mention two key relationship factors that I really think that are interesting ones. First one is, I used to mention, it's the bacon and eggs discussion. Probably a few people have heard about that. But you, living in Pennsylvania, in US, you usually ask for bacon and eggs in your breakfast, don't you?
Absolutely. Every chance I get.
So here's the point. When someone asks for bacon and eggs, the chicken is involved, but the pork is committed. The chicken is involved in the process. They can supply you the eggs for your breakfast, but the pork is much more engaged on this topic. Different kind of what they provide to the relationship, what they provide to you. This is the kind of relationship that I expect from a supplier. I don't need them just providing the eggs, right? But they must go deeper into that and say, hey, I have a solution for you. Probably you'll not be as much profitable for me, but this will make our relationship longer and trustful. And so once you have such kind of feedback from your supplier, you stay with that supplier. They are doing something different for you, so this is the kind of arrangement that we need from the companies. The second one is, I live in Brazil, I live in São Paulo. We are 50 miles away from the beaches, right? And we do love to spend some time at the beach. And when doing that, one thing that I do like to do is to play paddleball. What is this about? When you play paddleball, you can stand for hours playing that. You keep throwing the ball away to your partner, and they keep the ball back to you. This is great. This is fun, right? And this reminds me on something that we should do with our suppliers. Sometimes companies play tennis with their supplier. They send the balls trying to beat their partners. This is not correct. One should give a good ball to the partner so they can give a good ball back to you, and then the fun happens and the game keeps moving forward. But most of the companies, even they don't know that they do something like that. They don't give good balls. On a clinical trial, they don't give enough information. They don't give the right profile of the patient, of what they are trying to achieve, and they expect their clinical suppliers to give them good results from any research. It's not gonna happen. You need to communicate to your supplier in order to have this information back. So the point here is play paddleball, give good balls. Odds are that they will give good balls back. This is very interesting point and makes us think about this for at least for a while. Are we sending good balls to our partners? This is something to discuss. Okay.
That's sage advice. I love the analogies. And ultimately, if we listen to what you're saying, two things. First one is, if we do this right and we actually work well, and figure out who's committed and who's involved, we won't lay an egg with our supply chain. And the other thing is, of course, to your point, if we're actually sending back the good balls, ultimately, we're not going to paddle our supplier either. So that's going to be really, really a good way to go. So thank you. That was fantastic. And ultimately, the key in this situation, to your point, is it's interesting in the fact that we're also seeing the industry changing dramatically with the uptick in op tempo or operational tempo. We're seeing that this is becoming a much more supplier-driven market. And what's interesting is, in the past, the sponsor companies were the ones that actually drove outcomes. Now the suppliers are so busy that ultimately they're starting to dictate timelines and everything else to our sponsor companies and to us. So there definitely has to be a much better relationship between the two of us. And based on that, that's a heck of a paradigm shift. Based on that, you tell me, how can we in the biopharm industry influence the future of supply chains and vendor relations and actually, accelerate some of our timelines?
This has been said that the future does not belong to companies, but to supply chains. It's not the best company that will be profitable and make money and continue existing in the future, but the ones that have the best supply integration from raw materials to the customer. We always need to focus on the customer. This is a very serious point, but most companies, they simply forget about that. They focus on their business and how to make that happen. They need to focus on the customer. I would say that the best way to integrate the suppliers that we have and all your networks is through the right communication. You go to your clinical trial supplier. You do need to build up a trustful relationship in order to have an open communication. If they have a problem, they do need to trust you that there will be no consequences if they openly discuss about the problems they have. Okay, this is about one specific way to send you a good ball. They are trying to send you a good ball, so you can openly discuss about that, and you can give a good ball back to them. My point here is try to reinforce the trust of your relationship, and then the communication will be even better. There are many ways about talking on trust, but this must be built as a bridge and through relationship. You must be open to talk. You must be open to express your thoughts on business and everything. It's not so easy. This is the point. But once you get started to build up the trust, the communication will help you a lot in the future. Okay.
That's excellent. So trust and communication is key. And what's interesting is you bring up a great point with our suppliers. But what's really interesting is it goes in both directions. So the other challenge that we have in the industry is we actually have to build the trust and communication with our clinical operations group, because the challenge that we have right now is that with the trust and communication and transparency, hopefully, that we have with our suppliers, they're the ones telling us that they're literally, beyond their bandwidth in terms of production. So now, if ClinOps goes ahead and changes a clinical trial, what will wind up happening is that they'll expect us to maintain the same timelines for delivery, and that's not going to happen anymore. So for us to have that trust and communication within, internally as well as externally with our suppliers, that's absolutely essential. And certainly some fantastic, ideas in terms of what we can do as an industry today to actually step up and do better. It's funny, we see so much in the way of interfaces and IT advancements and even artificial intelligence. It still doesn't replace simple communication and relationship building with each other and building that trust.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's one point I used to mention, it's the high touch versus the high tech. You do need the high tech, like we are having right now, but we need the high touch, the connection between people and companies. And companies are based on people. This is very important to say, right? So just one quick point. For the ones that are watching us right now, after this one, pick up the phone, call your supplier. Hey guys, how things going? Everything okay? How are you managing with COVID? How are your families? Are they okay? So you start building such communication and enhancing the trustfulness of the relationship, right?
That's excellent. I love that, high touch and high tech, and there's a lot of heart there. And you're right, that's kind of the key. And I'm with Luiz. If you get the chance to pick up the phone and go ahead and contact your vendor right now, as well as your partners in development, that's going to be key. So I can't thank you enough, Luiz, for spending some time speaking with us today and for sharing your thoughts and insights on certainly, what are our challenges, some solutions and opportunities that we have in our industry, both with supply chains as well as with our vendor relations. So I'm looking forward to seeing you really soon at the Clinical Trial Supply Forum in May in Brussels. And I just wanted to tell you how much I've appreciated this conversation, Luiz, and hope that you're having have a great day and look forward to seeing you in May.
Same for me, Steve. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Looking forward to meeting you in person, right? And then we can talk a lot about those concepts.